Hi, this is Lisa, and you are listening to I Love That Movie. This podcast is for movie lovers. It's not an unbiased opinion, it's not a straightforward review, it's just a couple people talking about a movie that they love. The format is each week I have a guest, and that guest and I discuss a movie that they love, something they're obsessed with, something they connect with. We'll talk about the plot, the director, and the actors, but we'll also talk about the personal connection my guest has with that movie. So if that sounds like something you want to listen to, keep listening. Hey, this is Lisa, and if you want to catch up with me on Twitter, you can find me at ILTM Podcast. I'm also on Instagram at I Love That Movie Podcast, and we have a Patreon. My show is always free, but if you want to support us on there, you can. That's at patreon.com/I Love That Movie. And if you sign up, you get a weekly bonus episode. We actually just wrapped up talking about Marvel What If. We've talked about WandaVision. We've talked about The Mandalorian and Loki. So extra bonus episodes on there if you want to check those out. I want to take a moment to thank my top patrons, and they are Chris Balga, Jeff Widman, Philip Barker, and Michael Cross. Thank you guys so much for keeping the lights on. And if you like what you hear today, please subscribe and rate the show. It does help new listeners find us. Well, I have a returning voice with me here today. It's impossible to get through spooky season without inviting you back, Courtney.
That is correct. Hello, everyone. Did you miss me? I missed you.
I know they did. So, Courtney, if you wanted to take a quick moment just to introduce yourself real fast.
Hello, I am Courtney. I'm also known as Victoria Bain around the web. I do a lot of cosplay and a lot of cosplay wig styling. I am also a member of the cosplay group Cosmic Coterie. You can find us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all over with that name. Cosmic Coterie. Again, Victoria Bain is where you can find me as well.
Awesome. Well, Courtney, I've had you on several times. We've
Yes.
talked about many horror movies, including Hereditary.
Mhm.
We've talked about Suspiria.
Oh, yes.
We've talked about, what was that one? The Black Coat's Daughter.
Oh, yes.
Yep, that was a good one.
That's a good one.
And American Psycho,
Yeah.
quite a few.
Yes.
But you're back to talk about another spooky movie. So what movie did you choose to talk about today?
Today we are going to be talking about Poltergeist, the 1982 version, not the new one, because that was a mess.
Yeah, it really was.
It was a mess.
This is the only one that I acknowledge. I kind of forgot about that remake.
I mean,
I forgot about that.
I had to sit down and really think, wait, did I see it? And I did, but it was just
I know
bad.
I did.
It was just bad.
It was. But this one is good.
Yes.
So, like you said, it came out in 1982. When did you first see it? Not 1982 because you weren't born yet. Neither was I.
I think the first time I saw it, I might have been like 8.
I feel like this is a horror movie a young person could see. Like, it definitely has scary moments, but because some of the main characters are children,
yeah,
I don't know. There's some, and there's a family
terrifying. Like when you think about it, when you think about it, like from the mind of a child, it's like I was 8 when I saw this. Holy shit, that was scary. Like some of the humor I get now as an adult because it's also really funny.
It is. It is. There's something, even though, it's not directed. Well, Steven Spielberg hired Toby Hopper to be, like, kind of to co-direct it. Because, like, he's listed as a director, but really they both directed it.
Yeah.
But it definitely has that Spielberg feel with, like, the family and, like, there's humor and, like, yeah, there's, like, some warm fuzzies thrown in at the end. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I know that I think I saw this as a kid too. And again, I think just because, like you said, there are really scary moments, but I think because there's sort of like an uplifting, ending,
Yeah.
I think that's why I was probably allowed to watch it. And there's just something like, I mean, there's just something like big budget Hollywood about it, even though it's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
really, really good, it's still kind of it's like it's heightened reality enough to where I think my parents were like, "Okay, you're allowed to watch this," you know?
Yeah, yeah. I I
But,
I think I think that's true. Not that they were irresponsible. They were
no, no,
just
no,
like,
no,
"Oh,
no,
no,
no. I mean, my
this is
dad
good for
did let me
kids."
watch The Shining as a child too, which he shouldn't have
Oh,
done, but,
well.
um I turned out fine. Mm,
Okay.
yeah. So, let me read the synopsis really quick. So, guys, I mean, I feel like you should have seen Poltergeist by now. Hopefully
Spoilers.
you have. But if you have not, I would pause here, go watch it and come back, and then here's the synopsis.
Yeah.
So, strange and creepy happenings beset an average California family, the Freelings. This includes Steve, Diane, teenage daughter Dana, 8-year-old Robbie, and 5-year-old Carol. When ghosts commune with them through the television set, initially friendly and playful, the spirits turn unexpectedly menacing. Steve and Diane turn to a parapsychologist and eventually an exorcist for help. So this is like pre-Insidious, but
Yeah.
some kid's gonna go missing. Similar vein, which is why I like Insidious so much. But
I think so too. I think you're right. I think you're right about that. I think, it has that vibe.
yeah, for sure, had to have been a big influence. I had a couple quick facts, just really fast. Number one, both of the terrors that plague Robbie from Steven
Yeah.
Spielberg's own fears as a child:
He's scared of
clowns
trees and
and
clowns.
trees. Yeah, it is true that trees outside your window shaking around are kind of terrifying.
Well, especially if it's like a storm and it's just
Yes,
ugh,
it's scary. I
it's
think being a
creepy.
kid is just scary, to be
Yeah,
honest.
because you don't know
I
what's
was
going
frightened a
on.
lot. Yeah. Parents were like, "Monsters aren't real," and I was like, "I don't know.
But I don't know that. Like,
I don't
I'm
know."
new. I'm
Yeah,
new
I'm new
here.
here. That's funny. The other one, or a couple other ones I had. So Steven Spielberg, like I said, hired Toby Hopper. This is after he was impressed with his work on Texas Chainsaw Massacre in
Yes, yes.
1974, which is kind of interesting. Like, okay, that movie is like rough,
Yeah,
and then he's like, make this one, but it probably did give the movie some edge for sure.
yeah,
Like, he it still stayed, like I said, like relatively positive towards the end, but it's got some grisly stuff in it
yeah.
too.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right.
To that point, apparently the film was originally R-rated.
Yes, it was.
But the filmmakers protested successfully and got a PG to PG-13 rating. Oh, it was a PG rating because the
'Cause they didn't
PG-13
have
rating did not
PG-13.
exist. Yeah.
Yeah,
So they had to argue it down to a PG, which
yeah,
is
but also
crazy.
I know,
Yeah.
like,
So
holy
many
shit.
parents are probably like, "Oh, this is PG. Let's watch this." And it's like, to their
Oh, we shouldn't
surprise.
have watched
But
that,
this PG-13 gap is why there were so many movies in the '80s that had, like, full-on boobs in them and were
Oh my
rated
god, yeah.
PG.
It's like, hmm,
It got out
that's
of control there for a while.
little bit.
Did you have any quick facts you wanted to throw in, or do you wanna
I
talk
have
about the
my
cast, or go ahead.
I would like to talk about my favorite fact of the movie.
Oh, I can't wait to hear.
The scene in which the mom, Diane, is in the she falls into the pool in the back
Mhm.
when it's raining and everything is
Oh
going
my god,
crazy
that part
again.
is the scariest.
So, I know a lot of people already know this, but if you don't know, the skeletons that were in the water were real.
That's so effed up.
And you wanna know the reason the reason why they were like, "Oh, it's probably just easier to use real ones," and I'm sitting here thinking, it's like, "What in the hell could they have been thinking?" But yeah, and then the actress had no idea that they were, like, actual real skeletons until after they were done.
Do they at least cover them in, like, fake stuff, like the
I
muscles and
I
everything?
think so,
I
but
hope
at
so,
the
otherwise that seems
same
like a
time
biohazard.
at the same time, what the shit?
That part of the movie honestly scares me to this day, just the
Yeah,
concept of, like, I don't know, just the
it's
skeletons coming up.
yeah, this
Skeletons were, like, a huge fear for me as a child for some weird reason, I was just very afraid of them. I remember, like, that goofy, like, dance, that Disney like the skeletons like dancing
Yeah.
around,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
made me cry. I was
Really?
like so scared of them. Yes. Like I kind of liked the jingle part of it,
Uh-huh.
like I liked the music, but I would like close my eyes when they would like open their mouths and come too close to the it
You
was so scary.
you know what that reminds me of? That stupid scene out of, like,
Spooky,
Scary
scary, no. Yeah, that's what
that
but go ahead.
stupid scene out of, Scary Movie or whichever one it was where, like, she's like she's Sydney's running away from the bones, and she's like, "Sydney, these are bones! What are you afraid of? It's skeleton."
I really don't know, like, it evolved too into, like, believing that they were, like skeletons were under my bed, or
Oh my
another
god,
big fear was that I was gonna take a shower, and if I
it's
didn't take a shower
skeleton.
fast enough, a skeleton was gonna come into the shower with me. I just made this up, and so my
Lisa,
mom would be like, "You're
what?
already done showering?" And I was like, "Yeah," and she's like, "You weren't in there very long," and I couldn't tell her, like, "Well, that's because of the skeleton." But
Oh, I'm so
I was
sorry.
convinced, that it was real. Yeah, I really don't know where that came from at all, but that's why this scene is, like, especially frightening to me.
Holy
Like,
shit.
I'm not still scared of skeletons,
Are you sure?
but it's still, like I mean, I can't think I'm just that's just
No.
horrible, like, being in that water and, like, all the
Yeah, no, no. Like,
bodies coming up, it's
it's
terrifying.
definitely one of, like for me, it's one of the creepiest parts of the when all of, like, the skeletons start popping up and, like, the coffins start, like, shooting out of the ground.
Yes!
It's
I'm
like
like,
it was off
"No."
the fucking rails. Or,
Yeah,
like,
that
it
Indian
is
burial ground, right? Or Native
it was just
American burial ground?
a graveyard.
A
So,
great oh,
the
regular yeah, not
it was just
regular,
a
that
but
sounds stupid. A
they
graveyard.
upset the spirits, you see.
Oh.
'Cause the big twist reveal plot point is that the housing development, they had to, in order to secure the land, they had to move, you know, graves in a cemetery, but what they did was they moved the headstones, but didn't move the bodies.
I think one of the creepiest things I ever learned was and I learned this later in life, I guess just because 'cause I'd never been there, but when I went to, like, Boston and you go to, like, Boston Commons, they're like, "Oh,
Mhm.
yeah, there were, like, a bunch of people buried here, and they used to, like, bury them on top of each other, like, that 6-foot
Yeah.
rule wasn't, like, a thing, and they would just
Mhm.
be like, 'Oh, well,' like, pile up a bunch of bodies," and I was like, "Ah."
Yeah.
And, like, I think that's the city where they said, like, a dam broke one time and, like, some of the bodies,
Yeah!
like, spilled out onto the street, and you're like I was
Well,
like, "Dear God."
and that's why you can't bury anybody underground in Louisiana either because
Oh, that's right.
they used to
Maybe
do
that's what
that.
I'm probably the second story is from Louisiana.
Well, yeah, because they used to bury them and then it would flood and they would just float to the surface.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. Although, like,
Mhm.
cemetery tours in Louisiana are cool with that.
Yeah, I wanna go back
Yeah, that's fun.
very
Um,
much.
yeah, so but yeah, this was a good scene to kinda start off with because it probably it's what I think of I mean, obviously the TV stuff too,
Yeah,
but it's one
yeah.
of the scenes I think of the most when I think of this movie.
Mhm.
It's just that
Second
part.
second only to "They're here." It's like,
I
"What
remember
are you"
seeing that clip so much as a kid.
So good
Did
because like, it's
that
so
little girl
creepy.
was almost Drew Barrymore, right? But I think they
Yeah!
decided not to use
They
her.
wanted somebody, I think, more sweet, kind of. Not to say that Drew Barrymore isn't sweet, because he
No,
obviously
but
used her for
she's kinda
Eugene.
spunky,
Yeah.
Like, that's part of her charm.
Yeah. Absolutely. No
Yeah, they
shade.
need, like, an adorable little girl to go missing and people to be
Mhm.
like, "Oh, no."
It's really sad because I think didn't she pass away? Like, she
Oh,
had
no.
yeah, when
I
she
didn't
was really
realize that.
young. Like, so that's another thing about this movie. People call it cursed because
Mm.
several of the actors have died. 2 of them were actually murdered, and then
Jeez.
yeah, it was nuts, and then I think, the actress who played Carol Ann, I think she had oh, man, it was some sort of, like, condition that I think it was like a stomach thing. I don't I can't particularly remember what it was, but I think she was like maybe 11 or 12 when she passed
Oh
away.
my god,
Yeah,
that's
it was
really young.
crazy. It was crazy. Like, I remember reading about it and I was like, "Wait, what?" And then I remember, like, kind of, like, after I had watched it, like, looking up a bunch of stuff about, like, some of the actors, and then I found out about the other 2 who got, like, murdered, and I was like, one of them, I don't wanna get too dark, but one
No,
of
no, you're
them,
fine. We usually talk about, like, behind
yeah,
the scenes
I
stuff, so
think
you're fine.
one of them, I think the girl who played Dana was actually strangled by her boyfriend,
Jeez.
and then the other guy, who did he play? Um, Pugsley, I think is his name. He was killed with an axe.
Damn.
Yeah, it's messed up.
Man, that's kind of like when we were talking about, oh my gosh, let me let this motorcycle go by.
Uh-huh.
Um, That's kind of like when we were talking about, The Exorcist, like, there's a
Mhm.
ton of
Mhm.
messed up stuff that happened around that, like, sets burning down,
Yep.
people getting hurt, people dying, yeah, it's like there's a few movies like that,
Yeah.
or like a month or 2 ago, we talked about that movie, The Waitress, and, like, the lady that wrote and
Mhm.
directed it was, like, murdered,
Yeah.
but like, randomly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, like, I don't know, sometimes that just happens. I mean, it's
Yeah.
like, sometimes with some movies, like, the behind the scenes stories are almost crazier than the movie.
Yeah, absolutely. Like,
Yeah.
that for sure is, like, jacked up.
Yeah. Man, but I didn't know that about the little girl.
Mhm.
Learn something new every day.
Every
So, yeah,
day.
it says Oliver Robbins is the only surviving child actor of this film.
Yep.
Dang. I was kinda scrolling through the
Yeah.
facts to see if I could find the one about the little girl, but it's
Oh, and then
probably in
he
here, let me
almost
see.
suffocated.
What?
'Cause okay, so, you know the scene, it's, like, towards the end where, like, the clown comes to life,
Yes.
and it, like, wraps around it? So, it was too tight on his neck, and he started,
Jeez.
like, they thought he was just, like, really into it, and he started turning purple. So,
Oh
they had to,
my
like,
god.
yeah, yeah. Like I said, cursed. Cursed movie.
Totally cursed. Wow.
Yeah.
So
Freaking nuts.
scary.
But, to a different point, to something a little more
A little
lighthearted.
lighter.
I one
I
thing
mean, we
that
are
I
talking about a horror movie, so it's
Yeah.
okay.
But one thing that I like a lot about this movie is all of the, like, practical effects that they did.
Yes.
Like, I really like all because like, they didn't have CG back then, so
Yeah.
they had to, like, do it live,
Mhm,
so to
mhm.
speak. But one of my other favorite scenes is when Diane is, like, she's just gotten out of the bath and, like, she's, like, being,
I'm
like,
looking at
pulled
this
all
scene
over
right
the
now.
yeah, where she's, like, being, like, pulled all over the room, like, up on the ceiling. So what they did was they had a static camera and the room was moving.
Man, that's so cool.
Mhm. So it was
It's
like
like
one of those,
Inception.
like yeah, exactly. It was like one of those rolly rooms, and so she was, like, just kind of, like, sliding all around while the camera's stationary, so that's one thing. I like all of the, like, the puppetry that goes into it with, like, the scary, like, the big f skull that pops out of the closet when, Steve pulls the rope too soon,
Yes.
and it's like, "Grr," and it's like, "Oh, shit, that's a really big face." It's like this huge, massive skull, and it's so cool to me, like, all of the practical like, when the guy is, like, peeling his face off and, like
That part freaks me out. Yeah, it
yeah,
still looks really messed up.
it's really jacked up, and, oh, and, what is it? What is, the way that they did so, like, at the very end when, like, the house, like, implodes on itself,
Yes.
so they built, like, a scale model of the house and put it over, like a vacuum kind of situation, like a really
Oh,
strong
awesome. I
vacuum,
didn't realize that.
and then they
That's
yeah,
cool.
they had it, like, set on wires, so when they pull the wires, like, parts of it would, like, kinda, like, crumble in and then get sucked into the vacuum, and it was, like, the way that it ended up was so freaking cool, like, I was like, as being young, I was like, "How did they do that?"
Yeah.
But, like, it's,
Yeah,
like,
that's incredible.
stuff like that because I think, ILM did that.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and,
They're just, like, so ahead of their time.
yeah, 'Cause I mean, it's just I love practical effects. I'm always going to be, give me a man in a suit versus a CGI kinda guy.
Yeah, I mean, I think actors respond differently when there's
Yeah.
something there.
Yes, that's true.
You know, they just do, and so, like, that's part of it, and then yeah, I think after a while our eyes get trained to be able to tell the difference when something isn't real,
Yeah. That
and so if you
uncanny
use real
valley thing.
things yeah, yeah, it's like, "Okay, well, I know that's real, so that's even scarier."
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
totally agree. I like some of the scenes in the movie that I like are just, like, very simple, but have sort of changed how horror movies are going forward, like,
Mm.
the main one I always think of is that scene where they, like, walk into the kitchen and all the chairs are stacked on the table
Yes!
in, like, pretty much an impossible way, like, I remember the first time I saw this movie, that part just there's
It
just something so unsettling about all they had to do was stack chairs, that's
Mhm.
it, and yet it is so unsettling, and obviously so many movies have borrowed from that.
Yeah. Like, it's oh, man, it's so like, it still, like, kinda chills me to this just to like, cause like, not to be weird, but stuff like that kind of happened back when I was younger in my mom's house. Like, we would, like, be in the house, and then we'd go into the kitchen, get something out of the kitchen, close the cabinets, and then go back in, and all the cabinets are opening. Or
Jeez.
you just walk in and they're open.
I think if you're honest with yourself, everyone has had at least 1 or 2 experiences like that where something unsettling happened and, maybe you don't believe that it could have been supernatural or maybe you do, but either way, you can't really explain it.
Mhm.
And sometimes, something happens that is so it's impossible. Like, it's like that chair
Yeah.
scene, it's impossible for that little girl to have done that.
Yeah.
So it's like it's not like it's sinister, I mean, it's not like a knife or, like,
It's just
blood on the
unsettling.
wall, but it's just like, what
Yeah.
happened here? And, like, I think that makes it even scarier because we've all sort of had some kind of experience that we couldn't explain, and we either just, like, dismissed or, like you said, it reminds you of your childhood, you think back on it.
Yeah. Not only so you mentioned that scene is also shot in a highly practical way because it's one take, it's one uncut shot. And basically what they did was they had 2 sets.
Wow.
So she pushed all the chairs in, she walks over, she looks in the cabinet, and while she's looking in the cabinet, they push the other set in, and then she walks back. Yeah,
Wow.
I know, right? It's so cool. It's so cool.
Yeah, the amount of time and thought that had to go into making that happen,
Mhm.
like you could have just, I don't know, cut away so that you wouldn't do
Yeah,
that, but the
because
fact that they did that
that's what we would do now. It would just be a hidden cut.
mhm.
But
But
back
there's
then
something scary about a tracking shot that, like,
Mhm.
leads your eye right to something terrifying like that. That's awesome. I didn't
Yep.
know that.
It's right, it's so cool. They do so many cool things in this movie.
Even, like, the forks and spoons bending, it's like
Yeah.
that's like, like by The Matrix where, like,
Mhm.
think of a spoon bending differently, but, that's even stuff like that. Just, again,
Mhm.
like, finding things that are unsettling and scary that aren't, things popping out
Yeah.
at you or blood or something.
Yeah, and I think not to harp too much on it, but I think one of the reasons why I didn't like the remake of it is
Mhm.
because it didn't have, like, the lighter moments in it, like, the humorous moments in it.
Mm.
Like, in the beginning where the guy is on a bike and he has, like, that case of beer under his arm, and those freaking kids, like, they have their RC car and they, like, ram their RC car into him and make him fall off his bike, and so, like, beer is just flying everywhere. All of it is just, like, exploding. And it's like, I laugh at that through the entire next scene because it's so funny. But it's
That's
like
so funny.
it's hilarious.
And I mean, I think, like, just as that I mean, that just goes to show what a good filmmaker, like, what happens when a good filmmaker has a movie like this. It's like they
Mhm.
know that audiences need that break sometimes.
Yeah.
And I think too, like, when you mix in comedy or other types of scenes, you kinda disarm your audience so that they're not, like, on edge constantly the
Yeah.
whole movie,
Oh my god.
and it pays off better.
So many movies do that. Like, I still like movies like that, but I won't
But then you
watch
don't
them as
revisit them as
frequently.
much.
Yes,
Yeah, because you're
because
like, "Well, that's
it's
gonna be exhausting."
stressful. Yes. Like, I get stressed out watching some of them, and it's like, you don't have to be at an 11 the whole time, guys. Like, dial it back.
Yeah, for real. I think there's so many elements to this movies, like, I'm just thinking I know I mentioned Insidious, but also, like, that remind me of, like, The Conjuring, and, like, I think that's why those films were so successful is they kind of called back to stuff from this,
Mhm.
having that, little, like, that team
Yeah.
of people, like the lady, "This house is clean," lady,
Yeah.
and stuff like that. I like having those characters,
Mhm.
also kind of make it more I don't know, it's like it makes it a little lighter somehow, like
Yeah.
having kind of people that are serious, but they stand out, in their roles.
You mentioned her. Another one of my favorite parts is where they're, like, getting ready to send, Diane through the portal, and and what was her name? I don't even like, I know that the actress's name is Zelda. I think it's, like, Tangia or something like that, is trying to go through the portal, and Diane's like, "No, I should go." And she's like, "You've never done this before." And she goes, "Neither have you." And, like, she pauses for a moment, she's like, "You're right, you go." Like, Jesus.
I
Like,
love
that's the
the
kind of
the portal in general, like, the
yeah.
fact that it's, like, horror, but there's also, like, this I mean, now people would probably point to stuff like Stranger Things, but there's, like,
Mhm.
this other dimension as well, like, that just makes it more fun, I think,
Mhm.
because it's, like,
Mhm.
in a way, like, uncharted territory in movies like this, like, just not something you think of, you just expect, like, straight, like, ghosts, but it's,
Yeah.
like, they try to make it, like, kinda like in Ghostbusters, I guess, is
Yeah.
another thing I can think of,
It's
it's, like,
unknown.
it's unknown, but there's something, like, scientific about it, like, I just like all that stuff kinda being melded together into one movie.
Yeah. It's good stuff.
Yeah, I can't get tired of, like, the TV scenes or, like, stuff flying around or, like, I just
Yeah.
for some reason, like, I like different types of horror, but I always have loved, like, supernatural stuff, like, in a
Yeah.
house, like, the very most. I don't know why, it's always
Because
what I go back to.
because you can scare the shit out of yourself easier.
Yeah, because at night you can be like, "I'm in a house." I actually used to tell Nick, like, I was ki part of me was scared to buy a house because I'm like, I get spooked easily, and I'm like, "I think I'm just going to believe it's haunted all the time."
Yeah.
Which hasn't happened yet, but now I might have a bad dream because we talked about it.
Oops. Oopsie. Oopsie
There have been
poopsie.
so many times that we watch a horror movie, and I literally have terrible dreams the whole night, and then I wake up, like, Nick will, like, wake me up. He's like, "You're having a bad dream," and I wake up, and then I try to play it off. I'm like, "No, I didn't."
No, I didn't.
The
I know what
next
you're
day,
talking
he's
about.
like, "You had a nightmare after we watched a horror movie," and I'm like, "That's ridiculous. Of course I didn't." But I totally did. I don't know, I guess what
Yeah.
can I say? I guess I just like being scared.
Yeah, totally. I think, also another the scene, it's a freaky scene, but it's also hilarious, is when the, parapsychologist and her team first get there.
Yes.
And the guy is talking about, like, watching, like, the Hot Wheels car or something, like, m make travel however many inches across the floor, and it, like, took, like, 7 hours for it to happen, and Diane and Steven are just like, "Oh, okay," and then they take them to that room, and shit is just flying around everywhere, and then it cuts back to them, like, drinking tea or whatever, and her whole her hands are shaking so bad. Like, they're trying to, like, steady themselves, and it's like, yeah, it's not a Hot Wheels sliding across a room in 7 hours.
Yeah, it's not exactly like you don't need proof, like, you can see it.
Yeah,
Like,
they then,
that's
like, they
so funny.
continue to try and, like, rationalize what's going on, and then shit just keeps getting wilder.
That's awesome.
I
Well, it's
love
like
it.
they got too much of a good thing, really.
Yeah. It's like, you were looking for it and you found it, buddy.
I think too, like, the stuff with the house you mentioned earlier about how, like, they just move the headstones,
Mhm.
it just touches on, like, such a fear when you, like, purchase a house, like,
Mhm.
you know what
What
I
don't
mean?
I
Like,
know?
what were you lied to about?
Yeah.
You always find out a bunch of stuff, but it's like it's just funny that it's that bad.
Mhm.
They've created a like sort of, I don't know how you put this, but like, yeah, like a supernatural beacon by upsetting all these ghosts.
Mhm. Just wild. Absolutely wild.
Very.
And also, so like one of the things that I kind of like when I first like the first few times I had watched the movie, it's one of those things where it's like after they get Carol Ann back, you think, "Oh, it's over." But then the movie keeps going. You're like, "Wait, why is the movie keep going? Wait, we're done here, right?" Cuz that's where you would normally have the conclusion.
Yeah, they come back covered in goop because it's the 80s.
Yes, everything's covered in goop.
But yeah, it keeps going. It's going to get worse.
And it gets exceptionally worse.
Yeah, it's like that was one of the milder things to
Yeah.
happen for the
Yeah.
kid to come back.
Yeah.
Because
And
that's before like the pool and everything else, right? Because that all happens like when the house is
yeah, the pool
being
and stuff
destroyed.
happens after shit starts popping off, as the kids would say. Um, yeah, but, like, all of that happens before things get really real, and, like, it's like, you know, that was stressful enough, now what's gonna happen?
You're like, well,
And
it's a horror movie. It's not over. Things are going to get worse. They're not
and,
going to
like,
get better.
a literal hellmouth opens in the kids' room, and, like, coffins are popping out of the floor in the kitchen and in the backyard
Yes.
and out of the pool and like vertically. That's what got me. Like it wasn't that they were just like, surfacing. They were shooting up out of the ground.
Yeah, I feel like so often with horror, it's a really good it's a really good genre to pick for low budget,
Mhm.
but it is fun what they were able to do when they were able to like do more.
Yeah. Yeah. Like
But like in the right way.
I
Yeah.
like that about horror movies. Like yeah, I know like people make them because they're cheap, but you can do some really cool stuff on a very very small budget.
Exactly. Yeah. You don't always need a big budget to tell a good
Mm-mm.
story.
Nope, you sure don't, especially not a scary one.
Mhm. Mhm. But yeah, I mean, what's scary can be kind of subjective, but I don't know, like everybody likes this movie. You
Yeah,
know what I mean?
I don't know
Like
anybody who doesn't like it, to be
I
honest.
seriously don't. Like, unless they haven't seen it yet, I guess,
Yeah.
that then they will see it and change their minds, but I
Also,
think it's just got so many good moments that are
if I meet
different.
somebody who doesn't like this movie, that's sus. That's suspect.
I think so too. But it's like, yeah, there's different I think what's kinda cool about the movie too is, like, obviously, we find out at the end why this is happening,
Yeah.
but the fact that the ghosts aren't just ghosts, or we don't just see the bodies at the end, like, we've gotten so many different types of
Yeah.
specters that we
Yes.
see, and they present themselves in so many different ways, like, I think that's kind of a fun part of the movie too,
Yeah.
and I think that also, like, kinda gives people, what they want. If they want, like, a creature peeling its face off, like, they get that, but
Yep.
if they want a creepy clown, they get that, like, you've
You
got
get
so many different things.
yeah, you get
That
clowns, you get
damn
body
tree.
horror, you get, freaking supernatural happenings, you get, house implosions. You get
House
like
implosions.
hell mouths and yeah, it's got such a good range of stuff in it that I don't like again, I don't get how anybody could not absolutely love this movie. It's such a good movie.
You think it would spark, like, a lot of big budget, exciting horror, but I feel like that is so challenging to pull off.
Mhm. I don't it's hard for like nobody wants to take a risk on a horror movie for some reason. You
Yeah.
know? And, like, I'm not one for slasher films, but I feel like most of the time, if it's a bigger budget thing, that's what it is,
Mhm.
which I don't like. Like, I
Yeah, I
ki
feel the same way.
slasher films just kind of like, I get it. I get it.
Yeah, I will say there are some good ones, but it's not the genre that I like the most,
Yeah.
and I feel like it's not the one where you can be the most creative.
Yeah. You kinda
Yeah,
have to,
so I agree with you.
there's only so many ways you can twist the backstory of the killer.
I agree. I totally agree. Are there any other scenes or
Oh,
facts
man.
that
I'm trying to think, like, because
I know,
there
I feel like I went through it so quick, but I mean, it's not like a super long
it's
movie.
not. It isn't. Like, it seems because you get to that one point where it's like the movie should be over, but then it keeps going, it feels
Yeah. I
longer,
mean,
but
it's,
it's
like,
not that
almost 2
long.
hours, which
Yeah.
is kinda different for a horror movie, but
Yeah.
it doesn't feel long. It's got a lot of iconic scenes that, yeah, are easy to
Yeah.
talk about, but
This house is clean.
yes. I'm trying to flip through and see if there's anything we missed. No, I think we talked about, like, the main ones. How about
Yeah.
that oh, I always forget about this one, like, that weird, scary, long-legged
The
ghost
dog, the
lady? Yeah, the
skeleton
dog,
dog,
yeah. Skeleton dog, yeah, that's what it was.
yeah, that thing is that definitely gave me some bad dreams when I was younger, because it's scary, and she's
Yeah,
like,
it looks terrifying.
ugh. It kind of reminds me a little bit of the librarian ghost in Ghostbusters.
Totally, totally.
Just the way that it's, like, really ragged, and it's, like, that pale white glowy, and its face is all peeled back.
Ugh, yes. That monster's scary looking.
It is scary.
You kind of forget because you just remember, like, their outfits and stuff, but when you go back and really watch it, you're like, "Some of these ghosts are terrifying."
It's like, "Yeah, can we
Um,
not?"
I guess this is, like, also the birth of, like, static TVs being
Yeah,
a big thing because like, now that's, like, almost a cliche, but this
mhm.
kinda, I think,
That's
started
the
that.
telltale sign. "Oh, you've got ghosts."
I have a memory of, when I was a lot younger. I think I was, like, a teenager by this point, but I had a really old it was, like, a combination TV radio.
Wow.
And it yeah, and, like, when I got it, it was old, so, I mean, it was, like, from a my mom got it for me from, like, I guess, like, a secondhand store,
Mm,
and, I had it next to my bed, and I was like, "Oh, this is," to me at the time, like, fancy, my TV right here and the radio, but then I think it had an alarm in it or something that
mhm.
someone had set, and I didn't realize that, so I, like, fell asleep, and all of a sudden, in the middle of the night, it
Oh,
came on,
no.
like, full volume, and the TV's on, and I'm
No.
like "Ah," and I get out of bed and I'm so, like, disoriented, I'm, like, not sure what's happening, so I just unplugged it, and it was a really old TV, so it stayed on
For, like, a
for a
hot
couple
second?
seconds. Yeah, but
Yeah.
I mean, after Poltergeist, I'm like, "It's haunted."
Nah, nah, that's gotta go.
Yeah, I'm like, it was possible for TVs to do that, but especially being a kid, I was like, "What the actual F?" I was, like, horrified by that thing after
Mhm.
that.
No, I feel you on that, like, yeah, it's scary.
I mean, to this day, TV static, which I guess doesn't really exist anymore,
No,
is scary.
not unless you're
It
doing the
was
thing where you're,
scary,
like,
kids.
calibrating your channels or whatever.
Mhm, mhm. Never know what you might find.
Nope.
Well, I guess if we're towards the end here, then that brings me to my last couple of questions.
Yeah.
To kind of summarize what we've been talking about, why do you keep coming back to this film?
It's just, eh, like, I feel like it's, like, one of, if not the first really solid horror movie that I've seen in my life, and
Mhm.
it holds up.
I
Like,
think it really does.
it
Yeah.
holds up.
I've
Like,
seen it so many times. I love
uh-huh.
it.
Like, when I heard that they again, I don't mean to keep
No, 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 it's okay. I think this is universally thought of as, like, not
Yeah.
good.
When I
If
heard
it
that
was,
they
like,
were
controversial, I'd say something.
but when I heard that they were remaking it, I was like, "Do we really need that though? Like, who's this for?"
I think I tried to convince myself when it came out that it was okay. I was like, "It was
Mm.
okay."
Like, I don't even think I saw it in theaters. I think I just watched it randomly on some streaming service, and I just like, again, I had to think, really sit down and think, "Did I actually watch that or not?" But the original, I know I've watched that at least 12, 15 times. I watch it every spooky season. I watch that,
Mhm.
I watch Rosemary's Baby, I watch The Exorcist, all of the good, solid classics because they hold up over time.
They do. I'm looking through, like, pictures from the remake, and I'm like, "Okay, I did for sure see this." I might have seen it in theaters. I forgot Sam Rockwell was in it, though.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, it's unfortunate sometimes, I'm not against remakes, but it is sad when they don't come close. But I think you're right. I mean, what makes something a classic is the fact that it can be so timeless, like that you can still go back and watch it. And I feel like,
Mhm.
sure, some of the effects in Poltergeist are dated, but they literally pioneered some effects
Yeah,
in this movie,
and they
and
still look really
it looks
good.
good.
Yeah,
Yeah, and it's like anything that has sort of aged it, you can kind of be like, well, yeah, it was made in 1982. It almost makes it like more endearing instead
yeah,
of bad.
yeah.
Um, what would you say to someone that hasn't seen Poltergeist yet?
Oh, man, if you're looking for a horror movie that makes you crack up, scares the pants off of you, and keeps you guessing, this is the movie for you.
Totally agree. Yeah. I think like when I think about someone that hasn't seen it before, I think of stuff like, well, if you like X, Y, and Z, like if you really love movies like Ghostbusters, or you've really gotten into Stranger Things or The Conjuring or any of that, you should go back and see, specifically for like The Conjuring
Mhm,
and Stranger Things, you should go back and see like Poltergeist, because I think it really
mhm,
influenced those projects quite a bit. So check it out. It's
definitely,
pretty good.
most definitely.
Well, Courtney, this was really fun.
Yeah, as
It
always.
always is. Yeah, it's fun to just kind of chat about a movie that I've seen so many times and have enjoyed so much growing up. So thank you
Mhm,
so much for choosing it.
of course.
Uh, you will definitely have to think of something else, and we'll definitely have to have you back soon.
Oh, I don't know what I could possibly think of.
I
It's
know you've got
bad.
like a list a mile long, but
Well, it's bad because like, sometimes I'll be watching something and be like, "Wait, I've seen this already."
that happens to me too, especially like on Netflix.
Yeah, because 'cause I'll start it and then be like, "This is bad," and then stop watching it, and then I'll go back to it. It's like, "Nope, I
You
remember
just
now."
get desperate. It's like a
Yeah,
fix. I mean, like, every couple of weeks, I'll be like, "Nick, we need a night where we just watch a horror movie." Like,
yeah.
I
I
need
need
that in my
it.
life.
I need
So,
it.
yeah, I get it. But there's some gems out there when you
Oh,
do that.
yes.
So I'm sure you'll think of something. But
Oh, definitely.
thanks again.
Of course.